Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack complex ideas, hopefully give you some really valuable insights. And today, well, if you've ever felt just overwhelmed by all the stuff we consume, fast fashion, disposable goods, feels like we're just drowning in waste sometimes.
It really does. It's a huge challenge, no doubt about it. But picture this, a counter movement, something creative, something powerful, a way to not just reduce waste, but to take old stuff, things people overlook, and turn them into something genuinely better, something with a much higher value.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today, isn't it? We're tackling Upcycling 101. The goal here for you is to really get what upcycling is all about. Why is it suddenly popping up everywhere? What are the actual benefits? We're pulling this from our source, Upcycling, Benefits and Basics of Sustainable Transformation.
Yeah, think of this as your shortcut, your way to get properly cleaned up on something that's way more than just, a weekend hobby. It matters if you're running a business, if you're an artist, or honestly, if you're just someone who cares about living a bit more sustainably.
Okay, let's get into it then. What is upcycling? Fundamentally, our source is it's about taking old, used, discarded things.
Stuff heading for the bin, basically.
Right. And creatively turning them into new products. But products with higher value or better use or just looking nicer than they did before, it's about making them better.
And that's the key difference, isn't it, from recycling? That's crucial. Recycling, it usually breaks stuff right down, melting plastic bottles into pellets, that kind of thing.
Right, into raw materials again.
Exactly. But upcycling, it keeps the original thing more intact. It enhances it. It often takes real design thinking, to keep its shape or look good while giving it a new purpose. You're not destroying it, you're elevating it.
That's a really helpful distinction. So it's not just crushing a can, it's seeing that can, or maybe a plastic bottle, as the starting point for something totally new, like a funky plant pot or part of the sculpture. Our source has some great examples, like taking old jeans. We all have those, and turning them into a cool tote bag.
Yeah, or those brilliant vintage suitcases. People turn them into furniture, like a unique little side table or a storage box with a real character. You're using what's already there, the history of the item, instead of just throwing it out.
I love the idea of making jewelry from, like, broken watches or bits of metal, taking something completely broken, seemingly worthless, and making it precious again. Or scrap wood, turning that into home decor, maybe a shelf or a picture frame. The potential seems, well, huge.
Oh, it is. And it's definitely not just a small-time craft thing anymore. Like our source points out, this is getting serious traction in lots of industries. You see it in fashion, obviously, but also home goods. Even big companies are looking at it for their sustainability goals.
Really? Like corporations?
Yeah. Think about, say, car manufacturers. Some are looking at using leftover seat leather, scraps to make high-end bags or wallets. It's part of that bigger shift towards a circular economy, moving away from just make, use, dispose.
Okay, so that's the what. But what's the why? What's the actual upside here for us, for the planet? Our source mentions some really big benefits, starting with the environment, which seems pretty obvious.
It's huge, yeah. Upcycling is like a direct hit against waste. Think about the mountains of clothes, plastic, furniture, all going to landfill every single year.
Yeah.
Millions of tons. Upcycling pulls items out of that stream, gives them a longer life.
Which, in turn, must save resources, right? If we're reusing stuff that already exists, we don't need to cut down as many trees or use as much water or mine as much metal to make new things.
Exactly. Less deforestation, less water pollution from manufacturing, less digging stuff out of the ground. It's a clear environmental win. And then there's the carbon footprint. Making new things takes a lot of energy, loads of emissions.
From extracting materials right through to the factory floor.
Right. Upcycling avoids a huge chunk of that because you're working with materials that are already here. You're just extending their life, not starting from zero, much lower energy needed.
Okay, environment's a big one. But there are economic benefits too, apparently. For us, just as people, it can mean making cool, unique things without spending a fortune, right?
Absolutely. You can get really stylish individual items for way less than buying new. And for businesses, it's actually quite smart. They can cut their costs for materials by using up stuff they already have, offcuts, old stock, whatever.
Okay. That makes sense.
And what's more, these upcycled items, because they're often handmade or unique, they can actually sell for more. People value that uniqueness, that story. So small businesses especially can find real opportunities there.
Which ties into that uniqueness point. That's another benefit mentioned. Unlike rows and rows of identical stuff, upcycled things are often one-offs. That bag from vintage curtains or a table made from old floorboards, it has character.
It really does. It stands out. It tells a story. You don't get that from mass production. And, that leads to another point. It really sparks creativity, innovation.
How so?
Well, it forces designers, artists, entrepreneurs, anyone really, to think differently, to look at waste and see potential. How do you turn an old tire into a garden seat? Or bottle caps into art? It requires real ingenuity, problem-solving skills.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like a creative challenge built in. And a lot of it seems quite hands-on, artistic even, turning that problem-solving into something tangible, something beautiful.
Exactly. And it creates business opportunities, too. Our source mentions this. People have built entire successful businesses just on upcycling. You see them on places like Etsy, sure, but also bigger brands now, especially in fashion, are challenging the old ways of making things.
Okay, so environmental, economic, uniqueness, creativity. What else?
Well, there's a big one. Promoting more ethical and conscious ways of shopping. Conscious consumerism. People are thinking more, aren't they? About where stuff comes from, how it's made, what happens to it afterwards.
Definitely. There's much more awareness now about the impact of our buying habits.
And upcycling fits right into that. It aligns perfectly with wanting sustainable materials, ethical production, less waste. So consumers who care about those things, they're drawn to upcycled products and the brands that make them. It just clicks.
It really covers a lot of bases then.
Yeah.
But it's not all straightforward, is it?
Yeah.
Our source mentions a potential snag. Something about IP, intellectual property.
Ah, yes. That's an important consideration, especially if you're thinking commercially. While upcycling is fantastic, you do need to be, well, aware of the legal side.
Meaning, what kind of issues?
Well, imagine taking, say, lots of old t-shirts with famous logos, stitching them together into a new jacket and selling it.
Okay.
The original logo is someone else's trademark, their intellectual property. If you haven't significantly altered it or, gotten permission, you could potentially run into legal trouble, brand infringement, that kind of thing.
Right. So while you're being sustainable and creative, you also need to be legally smart about it, especially if you're selling things.
Exactly. It's just something to keep in mind as this whole area grows and becomes more professionalized. You need to navigate that potential pitfall.
Got it. Okay, so let's sort of wrap this up. This deep dive really shows that upcycling is, well, it's much more than just sticking some old bits together. It's a serious approach to sustainability. It helps the planet, can save or even make money. It fuels creativity.
And it pushes us all towards being more thoughtful consumers. It's genuinely transformative, not just for the materials themselves, but maybe for how we think about waste and value.
Absolutely. Redefining what we even consider rubbish. So to leave you with something to think about, look around your own space, your home, your workplace. Is there something old there? Something used up, maybe a bit broken, sitting in a corner? What potential does it have? Could it become something new, something better, something with a higher value?
Or even just thinking about the principles of upcycling, seeing that hidden potential. How could that influence the next thing you buy? Or maybe spark your own creative project?
What story could that transformed item tell? Something to mull over.